So, hello and welcome to Inspired Men Talk, the podcast where we explore honest conversations around men's mental health, from overcoming personal struggles and helping others through theirs. My name is Peter, and I'm a solution focused hypnotherapist. I help people with their fears and phobias and overcoming workplace stress. And with me, as always, is Gary. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, and thank you very much for introducing yet another brilliant podcast. I'm Gary, and I'm also a solution-focused hypnotherapist and solution-focused practitioner, and also a lecturer to train other therapists in the solution-focused model. And everything we do is about mental health.
Thank you very much, Gary. And fresh back from Japan, we have Ben Pollard. Hello, Ben.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, again, solution focused therapist. Slightly jet lagged from Japan. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit weary this morning. I only landed last night. But yeah, policeman as well, and bring a different perspective, but also lecture. And I'm a newly qualified supervisor.
So before we go on to introduce, I just need to ask an interesting question because last year you went to the States. Is the jet lag worse coming east to west or west to east?
Do you know what? I'm actually finding it far easier this time around because we actually go back in time.
Right.
So in Japan, you're a day ahead. Actually, coming back yesterday, it's like just getting up early and doing a really long day, like 4 a.m. in the morning, and
Right.
then sort of, 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I say, touch wood, so far, it doesn't feel half as bad.
Good.
Thank you, Ben. So every episode we sit down with real people and we want to have powerful stories and learn about the lives and the lived experience that can inspire us and hopefully you as our listeners. And today we have another amazing guest, a gentleman by the name of James Newell. Good morning, James.
Good morning. You don't have amazing just yet. Let me speak first. But yeah, thanks for having me. You can decide in a minute.
I'm sure we always have amazing guests. They're always amazing. So yeah, no. So thank you for joining us, James.
My pleasure.
And James, you have an incredible lived experience. Something amazing happened to you and you came through that. And I'm not going to spoil the story. I'm going to hand over to you and say, tell us a little bit, about you and what happened to you and why you're here with us today.
Yeah, well, I think actually, because I was referred to you by a good friend of ours, there's another thing that I don't think you actually know about happened before the thing that you know about. So this will be interesting.
Oh,
So my name is James Newell. I'm currently 41 years old. I'm father of three. And it's funny because I usually define myself by what I do in the business world. But from a mental health point of view, it's really great to be here and talk with you guys because I have had essentially a lifetime of exposure to mental health issues, mostly bad, unfortunately. And it started when I was 19. Well, it started throughout my childhood, really. But when I was 19, I lost my father to suicide, which was obviously a hugely life-defining moment. And I realized, obviously, at the time, I didn't really understand what happened. I was very young. But preceding that, we lived in a household where we were under threat of violence on a daily basis. And sadly, when the news actually came when I was at work at the time, when my brother came to visit me at work and say that it had happened, we hadn't seen my dad in about 5 years. And it was actually good news, as sad as that is to say, because for the first time in a long time, I actually felt safe because we lived in fear for the longest time that he was going to find us. We had sworn affidavits on our address and we kind of went into hiding essentially. So
wow.
that was a hugely defining moment. And I've had over 500 hours of professional counseling and CBT therapy and all sorts of stuff to deal with that in particular. But then the story gets interesting. So by the time I'm 21, I get my inheritance and I was extremely angry. And it's only really, bear in mind, I'm 41 now, about to turn 42. It's only in the last 2 or 3 years I've lost the anger towards what happened. It's taken me that long to do it. But at the time I was really angry and I wanted to waste the money as quickly as possible, essentially like a two fingers up at you kind of thing. So I thought I'm going to go traveling around the world. So I planned this trip: Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Borneo, Bali, Australia, America, not Japan, unfortunately. But I wanted to go and have a really great time, waste some money as quickly as possible. And for me, I had this notion of resetting the etch-a-sketch of my life. So to that point, it was a bit of a mess, hadn't been great. I was working in the motor trade at the time, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I thought, well, I've got the time and the freedom. I'm going to just travel the world and go and do that thing. So October I left, and I left by myself. And it was because obviously none of my friends had tens of thousands of pounds to spend on traveling. It was just me because I'd had the inheritance. So I made the decision to go by myself. And the first stop was Bangkok, Thailand. And I remember getting on the plane and sitting next to this old couple and thinking, oh no, this is disappointing. It's like, I'm sure they're lovely people, but I haven't really got anything in common with them. And it turns out they were sat in the wrong seats. So then they moved away, and this single guy moved in who was also traveling, doing exactly the same thing I was. So from the very moment I got on the plane, there was kind of serendipitous notion of like, oh, this is interesting. I'm in the right place. So I flew to Bangkok, Thailand, and I still remember the first email I sent home, which was greetings from another world. It was just such a wild experience, probably like you going to Japan. It's just such a different world to what we're used to over here. And I had a good few weeks of traveling by myself, meeting people. You kind of pair up with people for a bit, and then you go back to yourself, etc., etc. That was October, and we got towards Christmas time, and I was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and I met a guy called Mark, and he said, hey, Christmas is coming up. Do you want to buddy up with me for Christmas? We'll go. There's this amazing place in Thailand called Phi Phi Island. We'll go there for Christmas. We'll be there for like the month of December, essentially. And then we'll see what happens from there. I was like, sounds good to me. So we worked our way back up through the islands and through Asia, back to Thailand and to Phi Phi Island. And we actually got there about a week or so before Christmas actually hit, because we did a few cool things along the way. And we got to Phi Phi Island. And I don't know if you guys have any experience of Phi Phi Island and what it's actually like. So it was, I suppose it is again now, but it was one of the most like picturesque places on earth. There's a place there called James Bond Island. So they filmed one of the James Bond films there. It's like completely clear water, white sand. It's what when you think of paradise, you will think of this place basically, and it really exists. So we got there, we paid for our bungalow in advance, and life was good. I stopped wearing my watch. I stopped wearing my shoes. I started to really relax and kind of, I haven't got the haircut to be a hippie, but I started to, all right. I started to embrace this kind of very relaxed lifestyle. And it's, this is awesome. Bearing in mind what I'd come from, I felt like I was really achieving what I wanted to hear, which is just, I'm going to just try and get over everything that's happened, and this will all be fine. So we got to Christmas Day night. So we went Christmas Day, we had a nice dinner. I think it's like a Swedish restaurant. We had like a roast dinner, Christmas dinner. Got to Christmas Day night, and we're in a place called Hippie's Bar on Phi Island. And I was drinking with some people there. I met another guy called James. So he was slightly older than me, far better looking, far more successful. So I really liked him, but hated him at the same time. And it was not unusual for us, because this bar was literally on the beach, like the water was like meters away from us. It was not unusual for us just to stay there and drink till the sun came up. So that was the plan. We're like, great, we're going to stay and drink till the sun comes up. I was like, yep, sounds good to me. Why should today be any different? It's been Christmas, lovely jubbly. I went out to the toilet, which is kind of a little shack. So you have to walk a little bit out the way to this kind of shack toilet. And on that journey, I sobered up really quickly. And I thought, I'm exhausted. And I've been drinking for quite a while now, not just today, but like for the past few days. Like, I'm not going to stay with them. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do an Irish goodbye. So I'm just going to leave, basically, because I know that if I go back and say, well, probably should be hitting the hay, they're going to talk me into staying. And I don't want to do that. So I walked from the toilets back out, kind of hiding from the bar so they didn't see me, straight back down towards our bungalow. And then I fell asleep, fully clothed on my bed. And that was it. Everything was good. I had money. I was 21. Life was good. Next day, I wake up to hear screaming like I've never, ever heard screaming before. And it was a real rude awakening. I was like, oh, something's going on. I thought it was people kind of messing about and playing football or something outside our bungalow. So Mark, the guy that I was with, he'd made it back from the place, and he had a girl. It's funny, there weren't just two legs coming out of the bed, there were four. So it was him, he brought a girl back. So I kind of make sure it was his foot, shook his foot. I said, mate, something's going on. I really don't know. I opened the door, and there's kind of water on the floor, a little bit of flooding, and then everything goes black. Absolutely everything goes black. So we got engulfed by a tsunami wave at that point. So I went from being in a completely dry, normal room, like we're sat in now, to being completely submerged, just instantaneous. Even now, it's hard to fathom just that switch. And I was drunk out of my mind to boot, which was exciting. And a really interesting thing happened, because I'm the world's biggest worrier, and I prepare for things and I check things and I'm early and all the details, etc. But when the actual event came and I was in fear of my life, I was as lucid and cool as it comes. So I went from being in the room to being in water. Instantly, I knew I was in water. and I knew that I had to find air. So this building room is kind of like a small shack bungalow on little stilts. And to paint the scene for you, if you Google Phi Island, you'll see it's shaped like the letter H. So the central part is called an isthmus. So an isthmus is not like a peninsula. So a peninsula's got water on all three sides. An isthmus has it on two sides. And the sea was essentially level with the land. So what had happened was the sea receded on this side and it receded on this side. And then it came through on both sides and submerged the central section of the island for a good few minutes. The island that I was on had I think it was the highest number of Western fatalities, but certainly a lot. Out of the 6,000 people on the island, about 2,000 to 2,500 people died. And it was in those first few minutes because they were just trapped inside their bungalows, inside their hotel rooms on the first level or two, because it's the worst place possible, essentially, to be for what happened that day. So I'm reaching around for air and I can't find any. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so I'm in water. I can't find any pockets of air and I can't break the structure that I'm in, even though it's this flimsy wooden shed with big ideas, basically, but I can't break the structure. And then it dawned on me. And then I started to panic and I lost control of my diaphragm. So I started to drown, basically. So I was forced to take in my first breath of water, and drowning is as uncomfortable and suffocating as you might think it is. So at the time we described of if you took kind of like wood and glass and concrete and all sort of mixed it up, put it in a pint glass of water and forcibly threw that down somebody's throat. That's what drowning felt like because of all the debris and everything. In my lucid state, I was thinking, well, I'm either going to get brain damage if I get out of this, or I'm ultimately going to die. So I panicked, started thrashing around, which you're not supposed to do. But at this point, all bets were off. I was like, this is it. And then I started thinking, oh my God, what a terrible life I've had. I'm 21. It's been really rubbish until this point. I'm only here because it was rubbish and I'm trying to make good of it. I've ruined Christmas for my mum and my brother. They're not going to know what happened to me. I don't know what's happened to me. It's like, oh God, what a disaster this is. And then just as I was about to give in, she's like, okay, breathe in that final breath of air, which I was absolutely convinced was going to kill me. Everything went completely calm in my mind. And I had this weird notion. And the best way to describe it is if you're thirsty, you have a drink. If you're hungry, you need to eat. I had this urge to die, which sounds really dramatic, but it felt so peaceful at the time and so natural. I always joke with people that, the scariest part about dying is like watching the bus come towards you, but just before it hits you, you'll be perfectly fine. And, everything's cool at that point. So I got into this really relaxed state. I was like, okay, here we go. And then because I'm a glass half full kind of person and every cloud, I then kind of got excited in a way. I was thinking, well, I'm absolutely certain I'm going to die. There's no way I'm going to get out of this. But on the flip side, I'm going to find out what happens when you die. And I don't have to wait another God knows how many years to do that. It's like, ooh, every cloud. So it's like, I was really curious, like, what happens next? And as that's going through my mind, then I feel air on my face. And what happened was all of the debris and all the other stuff is sweeping through across the isthmus and across the sea. And my bungalow collapsed or kind of contorted like that. And I popped out the top like a lucky penny. And so, which is just so disorientating. I consider myself a fairly intelligent person, but floating in the water and like seeing just bodies and debris and things around me, my first thought was the island is sinking, which is physically impossible, right? But at the time, that's where I was. Like, I don't know what's going on, but the world is ending and the island's sinking, and all I could see was just water for miles around. So I'm scrabbling about in the water, thinking I need to hold on to something because otherwise I'm just going to be completely washed through to the sea, and that's it. Like it is game over. Under the water, I can feel myself being hit by bits of debris and other stuff. And I was exceedingly lucky because I met lots of people that were missing limbs, missing all sorts of terrible injuries, obviously fatalities, decapitations, all sorts of stuff from the sheet metal and all the debris under the water. That was really what was killing people more so than just drowning people. So at that point, I kind of float across, hold on to a tree. And then I think, hang on a minute, where's Higgy? Mark, the guy that I was with, like, where is he? And water's in my eyes, all salty, everything's all disorientated. So I think, oh my God, where is he? Where is he? I eventually lose my grip on that tree, and then I'm back in the water. Oh God, here we go. For about the millionth time today, I think I'm going to actually die. So I'm scrabbling around with my eyes closed, scrabbling around, and then a hand comes out, grabs mine, pulls me in, and it's him. I feel like I floated from Thailand to bloody Sri Lanka or somewhere. Realistically, I probably floated about 10 or 20 meters, but it was so disorientating. I just couldn't work out where I was or what was going on. So he grabbed me. So you're all right. Yeah, I think I'm all right. And we're kind of intertwined around the tree like this, holding on for dear life, and the tree's shuddering. And we're kind of convincing ourselves that the trees, we're going to be safe here. We'll just wait till the water drops. And around us, you can see other trees breaking in half and uprooting with people still holding on to them, kind of screaming, like just going off into the bloody sea in the distance. I'm thinking, like, this is pretty much as bad as it gets. But all we could do was hold on. Not long after, the water started to drop, and it dropped at literally that's not even an exaggeration. It was that kind of level, which at the time, like, great. Water equals death. No water equals safety. Brilliant. Bye bye, water. This is going to be wonderful. We didn't realize what that movement signified, the amount of energy that takes to do that. So, where most places in the tsunami, the sea receded, it came in, messed a lot of stuff up, and then it generally recede. We had recession, came in, submerged, and then we had hundreds and hundreds of waves playing off against each other. But this was the first recession of the water. So we climbed down off the tree. I'm wearing my polo shirt, but my trousers are now missing, and my boxer shorts look like they've been kind of dipped in a shredder. He's completely naked, and we realized that his ankle's actually broken, having said that he was fine. He's obviously full of adrenaline at that point. And we're looking around, and everything is gone. And there's just piles of debris everywhere, dead people, bits of people screaming. And then somebody shouts, it's an American voice. I don't know if the person live. I have no idea who they are. And there's no way I can find out who they are. Somebody shouted, "It's coming again." And we didn't need that explained to us any more clearly than that. Luckily for us, where we were on the isthmus, it goes quite hilly at each edge like this. And so where Hippie's bar was over here, my bungalow was over here, we were quite close to kind of a higher ground bit. So we ran. He ran on his broken ankle. I ran on barefoot and through broken glass and bits of wood and everything else. And we just launched ourselves. So literally running for our lives. I literally know what that feels like. It's like I gave everything I've got. We launched ourselves onto the kind of stinging nettles and brush and started to climb up just as it swept in. There was a phrase at the time, seconds and centimeters. That was the difference between life and death. And it really, really was. If we'd have hesitated for a second to think, what does he mean? What do you mean by that? It's coming again. That would have been it. We instinctively just ran in, and the water washed through. So we start to climb up the side of the hill, and we're looking back on just all of the devastation and all the stuff. Mark is completely naked except for his digital wristwatch, which was an exciting look. So we got some idea of what the time is, but we don't know how high is high enough to be safe. This has never happened before. I don't know where it's high enough. So we kept climbing as much as we could, and we're under quite heavy canopy tree cover. So the logical, lucid part of me is thinking, well, we're not going to be spotted here to be rescued by helicopters or whatever. So we're going to have to go down at some point. So we sat up there for a couple of hours and waited and watched, and we watched the waves come in and go and come in and go. And then it eventually calmed down. Then the helicopters and planes started appearing in the sky, which for us was a real sign of rescue. And we made the decision to go back down. So we went back down, and everybody's luggage and all the stuff was just everywhere. So I was able to get myself a pair of shoes to protect my feet, and Mark got some clothes, etc. And the plan was we would go across to kind of the main pier of Phi Phi Island, steal one of the banana boats with the engine on the back, go out to deep water, flag down an oil tanker or something. And that was my back of a fag packet safety plan. That was what we were going to do. And I'll never forget the feeling of when we climbed back down and we set foot on the sand, and you just look across and it was just rubble and devastation, and then the sea, and rubble and devastation in the sea. And I was thinking, we're so vulnerable. The second we step foot on this land and we start walking across there is no protection. So if this happens, and bearing in mind, we don't understand what a tsunami is or what has happened, but we had a good few hours of it seemed clear. But I was thinking, if anything happened, that's it. We're gone. We're going to be just taken straight out to sea. But we had no choice. So we made it across. We're walking across the sand and the debris, and there's mountains around each palm tree, there's kind of mounds of debris and stuff, and you could hear kind of people groaning in them that, you couldn't have saved them. They were very, very mortally injured. Dead bodies, bits of people, like the worst you could possibly imagine. We eventually get to the beach, and the beach had dropped by about 8 foot, because all the loose sand had just been washed away. And of course, all the little boats, it's like I used to describe it like salt bait. It's like just been crumbled up into dust. Like they were all gone. Everything was ruined. But what was there was the Phi Phi to Phuket ferry, the same ferry that took us to the island. They were rescuing people. So we get onto the ferry, and I thought we were safe, and we still weren't. We were still in danger. So we're on the ferry and we're talking to people, and they gave us some water and like, are you okay? Because different people had different experiences of what happened. Some people were just on higher levels of hotels. I'm like, oh, this is an inconvenience. I have to end my holiday early. And there's people like us who's like, oh my God, nearly died like 1,000 times today. I'm just in absolute PTSD shock here. What's going on? And it was like a movie. They're turning the engine of the boat on. It's going, all of the debris in the water is being sucked into the engines, and it means that the boat can't move. So people had to jump off the boat, swim under, like the guys who run the boat thing, taking the debris out. And the whole time we're kind of sat there floating, and it's eerily silent at this point. I'm just thinking, I can see that wave coming like from the other side of the island, spinning the boat, killing us all. Like I could just imagine dying in any number of circumstances. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, I was bored of being scared to death at that point. It's really weird. I remember, I'm not religious, but I remember saying like, if you're going to kill me, just do it now. Like, this is boring. If you're going to do it, stop messing with me. Just take me now, because this is just, I can't handle this just constant stress and constant pressure. So eventually the boat kind of veers away a bit. We get the engine going. We dock with a slightly bigger boat. And that's where we get hooked up with other people of varying degrees. So there's piles of kind of bodies and corpses, and then there's kind of walking wounded, and people who are absolutely fine. Most people were drunk because they were just in absolute pain. I met a guy who kind of severed his wrist, and he had a nappy on his wrist. So it was completely blood soaked, and he was just absolutely drunk out of his mind trying to deal with the pain. It's like nightmare scenario. So then that boat docks in Phuket. Bearing in mind, I don't really know how far away Phuket is, because this is long before like Google Maps and everything else. And even if it was, all my stuff is now at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. So I was like, I don't know if we're safe here. Like, where are we? Where's the sea? We got taken to a place called Mission Hospital Phuket, and I got wheeled into the reception. And it's so eerie because a couple of years, well, quite a few years ago now, actually, the film The Impossible came out. If you saw that, The Impossible. I watched that when it came out. I took my mum to see it, my wife, my brother, everybody that I could, because as much as I can tell this story, like the visual depiction, it's absolutely spot on. Arguably, it's better than I could ever describe it to you. But there's this interesting scene in The Impossible where they go through the double doors of the emergency department, and it's just carnage everywhere. And then they turn around and there's a TV on the wall, and it's like blah, 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 all in Thai. That's exactly what happened to me. I got wheeled in. I couldn't walk because I had debris and glass and stuff in my feet. And I'm kind of looking around, and it's very disconcerting to hear people in a language you don't understand talking extremely quickly and in a scared way about something that you don't know that you're safe from. I was like, oh my God, we're on the ground level here. I don't know how safe we are. What's going on? They took me through to the operating room just to essentially dip me in iodine and take all the bits of debris out of my feet. All the while, because I'm Captain Sensible, I'm saying, I can't pay for this. I don't have any ID or any money. And they're all kind of laughing at me. It's like, it's fine. Like, we know what's happened. It's cool. They admit Mark into the hospital because he had ingested enough water that he had water on the brain. So he was hallucinating. He was in a much worse way than I was. And then they wheeled me into the reception with my little shoes that I'd had, and I refused to let go of them. And then that was it. They're like, right, we've got some other people to deal with, so best of luck. And I'm sat there in the reception, completely sunburnt, starving, nearly died like 1,000,000 times today, cut to ribbons, in a lot of pain. No passport, no money, nobody knows I'm alive. I don't even know if I'm going to live that day because I'm still on the ground floor. And I caught my reflection in like a pillar in the emergency room. I just burst into tears. I was like, oh my God, what the F do I do now? Like, what do I do? And at that point, the lift opens. A lady comes out and says, a Thai lady, says, are you okay? And there's always time for comedy. So typically I said, no, I'm not okay. So look at the state of me. I'm not okay. She said, my daughter is upstairs, or her niece or something. She's had a motorcycle accident, not tsunami related, but we have a room. And in that room, there's like a small bench. You can sleep on that bench. We will look after you. Come with me. So she wheeled me up to her room. And then, so it's like the niece there, the mum, and then maybe the mum's sister or something. And the radio's going crazy with Thai people talking crazy talk about everything that's going on. And they had a Thai to English dictionary in the room. So all I could think to do, so we communicated through that because English wasn't that great. And I just looked for the word lucky and just pointed at it and pointed at myself. And the Thai word for lucky is chok di. And I met a lot of people on my journey who, when I told them where I was, particularly Thai local people, they just went white as a sheet and went, Chalk D, because it's like saying I was on like the 91st floor of the World Trade Center. I saw the whites of the pilot's eyes. But I'm fine. Here I am. It's just like I shouldn't have lived. Basically, it was just such a slight margin. So she wheels me up there, starts to take care of me. The next day, I get taken out to the internet cafe so I can at least contact home. And I didn't want to tell, my mum's a huge worrier, so I didn't tell her what happened. I just said, lost some of my stuff, so I've got to come back because I haven't got my passport, blah, blah, blah. I didn't want to give her the full details. I said, I'm in the hospital. I'm just chatting up the nurses, but I'll be back in a couple of days. Don't worry. And then I got taken to the town hall in Phuket, where they identified me with fingerprints and took mugshots, etc., took a statement from me. I spoke to the British consulate, who... I'm a patriot, but they were embarrassingly poor. Unfortunately, I was basically left to my own devices. And then I was given a lift in the back of a pickup truck to Phuket Military Air Base, where I was given like a Delhi counter number for my flight. So it's like, now serving number 42 at the Delhi counter. So that was my plane ticket to get on a military plane to go up to Bangkok, because then that's where everybody was then dispersing from back around the world. So I got on this military plane, which is one of those ones with no windows whatsoever that they have tanks and stuff in. So there's just hundreds of people on this plane. And again, from the corpses and dead bodies to the really wounded to the not so bad to the people who just lost their camera or something really, really trivial indeed. So we get on that flight and I'm holding on, and it's like being on a bus. So I'm holding on to like this thing, and then the plane takes off like this. And I'm kind of stood there in my rags, just thinking, oh, this was supposed to like help me reset the Etch-a-Sketch of my life. Like, this is far worse than what I've just come from. This is wild. Like, oh my goodness, what's happened? Mark wasn't with me at that point because I missed a bit of the story. Before I got there, I visited Mark in his hospital bed, and he'd been in the military. And he said to me, I've been through an awful lot of stuff. I've killed people, and I've seen people be killed, and I've helped my friends kill themselves when they've been mortally wounded, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to deal with this by pretending this never happened, because I just cannot cope with this. So as a result, I'm never going to speak to you again. It's nothing personal, but that is how I'm going to deal with it. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound like a very healthy thing to do, because who am I going to talk to? But there we go. Thanks very much. And what I did still have at the time was a chain around my neck, a St. Christopher of all things, and it had the key to our little locker on the island with all of our money and passports and stuff in it. And he made me give him that key because he was going to go back and get our stuff when he was well. I was like, mate, like, the building's gone. It's like, it's all gone. Like, you can have the key, but it's all gone. Like, I don't think you realize just how bad this is. So yeah, I'm still to this day, I spoke to him once on an email, only because I really pushed for it. He's never spoken to me ever again, because that's how he was going to deal with it. So anyway, they put me on that plane. I get to Bangkok, and that's when being Captain Sensible came into play. So I phoned my mum. All the phone calls and faxes and things are free. We were still faxing at that point. That's how long ago it was. So I phoned my mum and said, it's time, send the fax. So she sent me a 36-page fax to Bangkok airport, and it had my passport, my tickets, my immunization, all the stuff that I would need to prove my identity and to actually be able to do anything. And I was able to cash in my round the world ticket to get my flight home. And if I wasn't able to do that, if I didn't have a round the world ticket, it was business and first only, because obviously everybody was trying to get flights out, etc. It would have been about £6,000 at least to get a flight home. So I managed to cash in my round the world ticket, and the British consulate gave me, it's a shame I still don't have it now, this really badly photocopied piece of paper, which was essentially like good for one entry to the UK, which I was to use at the other end because I didn't actually have my real passport. So I got loaded onto the plane. Just felt really sorry for myself on the plane ride on the way back. Like, so I was in this amazing place, all the money and time in the world, everything was wonderful, sunshine every day. I'm flying back into rainy old London, having nearly died like a million times, thinking it was a bit crap, wasn't it? So so I get to passport control at Heathrow, and a police officer escorts me through. And the lady, I'll never forget this, the lady at passport control kind of looks me up and down. Bearing in mind, I'm in like my tattered rags that have been donated from the hospital donation box. And the tsunami is clearly a thing that has happened. And she was kind of examining this thing. I did shout a few naughty things at her, unfortunately. I was like, just let me through. Like, come on, this is, I'm with a police officer, for Christ's sake. Like, this is legit. Just let me in. So I got let in. My mum picked me up, and she kind of burst into tears, realized, just how bad it had been for me. I went straight to the doctors, who just checked me over, and that was it. And I went home. And 500 hours of counseling later, I can tell you the story without getting teary about it or anything like that. But it's a big, big moving story for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that
You're welcome.
experience. Yeah, I try and take it all in.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And there's so much more detail as well. I'm wary of time. I could talk to you all day about it. So many details to go with
No,
it.
I can well believe it. There's a few things that kind of stuck out with me there when you said, you woke up and you felt that the island was sinking. I was in Bermuda and I went to the Bermuda, happened to you, but I went to their aquatic center.
Mm.
And Bermuda is like a bunch of tiny little islands on the top of a volcano, and they've got a satellite picture of it. And instantly, as soon as I saw that, my primitive brain went, "Oh my God, we're going to fall into the volcano." So I can kind of understand where that
Yeah.
comes from. One of the things we love to talk about on the podcast is how we cope, right?
Yeah.
And obviously you've gone through something that not many people will ever go through, right? Touch
No,
wood.
thankfully, yeah.
What you've talked a little bit about how you survived the instant part of it. How did it impact you then when you were back home? When you were technically you were safe, but
Mm.
you've still got that. You've talked about Mark used avoidance, which we know is
Yeah, totally,
a
yeah.
technique that people do use
Mm.
to get over trauma. What did you do? I know you said you went through the counselling, but what kind of things did that help you with? How did you move forward?
Well, I had an awareness of counseling because of what had happened to us previously. So before my dad actually took his life, we had 6 failed suicide attempts. So we'd had a really, really horrendous time. And obviously, I know now their cries for help. He didn't actually want to go through with it. I understand that now. But at the time, I was just angry with him. So I was aware of counseling, and my mum tried to take me to counseling, and I wasn't up for it at that point. And again, I told them where they could go because I was only, 14, 15 at the time. I've got enough going on. Thank you very much. But I intrinsically knew I needed to speak to somebody and ask for help. So in the immediate aftermath of coming back, I had generalized anxiety disorder, like off the scale. I still have it now, but it was off the scale. If I was getting in a car, it was going to crash. The house was going to fall down around me. I could imagine in any circumstance how easy it could be to be killed, just like crushing a bug. I had this real awareness of life is it's just embarrassingly fragile. So that was very, very difficult. I had flashbacks, I had nightmares, and also I became obsessed with finding James from Hippies Bar. So I looked at, because obviously you meet people, you
Yeah.
don't ask them for their ID, do you? So I just knew him as James, white guy from Norfolk. I thought it was. I didn't know. So I started looking through all of the survivor lists, all of the bodies, thousands of pictures of bodies, trying to find him and find out what happened. And I did find him, and he did die, and he died at Hippies Bar. And if I'd have stayed, that would have been my end also. And I have this thought of when I met him. I mean, we've all got like an invisible timer above our head of when our time will come. But when I met him, his one literally had like 12 hours left on the clock, and nobody had any idea. That was really moving for me, particularly because same name as me, about the same age. I was like, oh, and they were trying their best to get me to stay and drink through the night. So a lot of flashbacks, a lot of generalized anxiety disorder, and also whilst I don't go into avoidance and things like that, for me, like eating is a form of control. So I stopped eating, self-care kind of stopped for a good while. And then I spoke to the counseling lady and I went in for my first kind of assessment. And with a big smile on my face, I kind of rattled through. I said, well, my dad killed himself. And then I went to traveling and then the tsunami happened and I nearly died and this and that. And I haven't eaten in a few days and I'm not taking care of myself, blah, blah, blah. Please fix me. With a big smile on my face. She was like, oh my God, this is going to take a while. So I was with her for a few years. And all she really did, because it wasn't CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, I don't know what the term is for it. So I just call it the talking one. So she basically just encouraged me to talk as much as possible. That was it. And just really talk through as much as possible. And then to think about it from different perspectives and just to try and understand it in different, reframe it in different dimensions. And through just absolutely talking it to death, it did help. But after a couple of years, I felt like I'd had enough of it and I didn't want to be dependent on it forever. So I came away from it. I dabbled with antidepressants as well, but I think I had fluoxetine, something like that. But I found that far from making me feel kind of okay and safe and level, it just depersonalized me. So I felt nothing at all. Because I'd rather feel terrible than feel nothing. So that didn't really work for me. And so over the coming years, I kind of drifted in and out of counseling and CBT as and when I needed it. And CBT was a lot better for me because as a logical, practical man, it's like when I think like this, then this happens and blah, blah, blah. So that was quite good to make sense of that. But there's still that kind of emotional and irrational side where I know I shouldn't do certain things, but I'll do them anyway because of how I feel. So one big thing that I did was I gave up drinking. So when my eldest son, Ralph, he's 11 years old, when my wife was pregnant with him, I stopped drinking because I had a parent that drank. And whilst I wouldn't have called him an alcoholic necessarily, it definitely exacerbated the situation that we were in. And I did not want that to happen. So I became teetotal, which is a real kind of safety mechanism for me. Because I know if I drink, it's funny because people think I've got ultimate willpower by not drinking. Actually, I've got no willpower. So I can't trust myself to have one drink. I have to have no drinks, and that's the safest path. So it's that. And then CBT worked very, very well. And then I kind of drift in and out. If I'm not feeling so great, I know how to handle myself now and what to do. And I know what the warning signs are. Like if I start skipping meals or if I skip self-care and things like that, those are my warning signs that I'm not feeling that great and I need to do something about it. And I've got some really, really good friends. Funny, I'll share something with you actually. So I created something which I call the traffic light system. So it's very difficult for me to text you and say, hey, Peter, not feeling very great. Can we have a chat? Because as men, that's very hard to do. So I created this system of, and obviously I explained this to them beforehand and then we used it, which was I would send you a police officer emoji. And it's the flag police. So you're either going to send me a white flag, which means I'm great, a black flag, which means I'm not great and I need help, or a checkered flag, so kind of in the middle. But for the want of just one emoji, I can then essentially say, Peter, how are you doing? There's the emoji. You respond back with a black one, go, not very good. And then I can then say, are you okay? And it gets over that first hurdle of, because for men in particular, even though I asked for counseling and I did it, and I'm really proud that I did, like, I'm not ashamed at all. I'm really proud that I was able to do that. And I don't know where I knew to do that from, but it's still hard sometimes to say, actually, I need to talk. Actually, I need some help. So that kind of policeman flag emoji system worked really well because I don't need words then to express myself, which I think for men in particular is quite a useful thing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We've had a lot of different people from different organizations on the group, and finding that initial talking point is really the way forward. I do have more points that I want to say, but I'm mindful that we haven't brought Ben and Gary into the conversation. Gents, have you got anything that you'd like to ask James?
James, I mean, that's, one in a million chance for people to experience that kind of thing, and to survive it and come out the other side. What's the benefit it's brought to you?
Well, it's funny because the benefit which you might think is I live each day like it's my last. No, I still worry about double yellow lines and parking tickets and things like that. But it's definitely given me perspective on life. It's given me perspective. And I think through the counseling and through the CBT, it's helped me to understand myself better. So I understand how I behave and also how other people behave. So I'm not mad at Mark for what happened, or not anymore, because I understand that. I'm not mad at my dad anymore because I understand it, and I understand he's got his troubles he had to deal with and blah, blah, blah. So I think that's what it's given me. And I do say that if I lived my life again, I wouldn't change a thing. I would do it all again. Like, it's like, as terrible as it's been, there is good that comes from it. And I met some people. So when I was obsessed with dead bodies and finding James and all this other stuff, I met some people that had a very similar experience. And so I consider myself lucky to have survived, but I met a lot of people who felt unlucky to have been there, and those were the lives that got destroyed because they took that negative route. Whereas I just consider myself a lucky person, and because I'm hilarious, I actually do have lucky tattooed on my back, but in the Thai script. Because I consider myself extremely lucky. So I guess to answer your question, it's perspective. I've got a real perspective and an understanding on my own kind of emotions and behaviors.
Thanks.
My mind just went slightly sideways. I know quite a few people have Thai and Chinese symbols from different meanings, and it's actually not what they think it means. So you did check that, didn't you?
Checked 30 times with
It
lots
does
of
say
different
lucky.
people. 100% it does, yeah. 100%. I had it checked a lot.
Yeah.
And then I had it done as a henna tattoo, and then I checked it and asked some Thai people, so what do you think this says? And then I got it done properly. So yeah, it does.
Cool. He's clever.
I told you I was Captain Sensible. It doesn't say lampshade or anything like that.
Yeah. I've got no questions about the tsunami because I don't think anybody can tell that story better than somebody who's been through that. I don't think it's easy to somebody else to conjure that up. So it sounds like a great point you went through in your life, good, bad, indifferent, but it was a point. What Ben went on to, what's the benefits? We know you had some counselling, some CBT, but actually you're now a father of 3 children. I think you said you clearly are a successful business owner. We talk about resilience a lot. much as like lifestyle before you went on holiday to rewrite your extra sketch, then having a different version of an extra sketch, you did rewrite it, but got a different one.
Mm.
And now you're successful or somewhat successful in your own lifestyle. How will those experiences implicated the current success?
So I think it comes from, it's nothing to do with the tsunami, and it's everything to come from, it's quite classic, isn't it, of like righting the wrongs of the parent. So because my dad essentially abandoned me, which I realize now through PTSD and other stuff, like that's a really big thing. So I wasn't enough, and neither was my brother, for him to stay alive, even though the relationship was terrible. So like that's a really, really amazing thing to happen. And for me, it's like righting those wrongs. And it's very interesting how life repeats itself. So I've got two boys and a girl. So Ralph, then George, then Lucy. And I was at a point where I didn't have my business. I was in a job. So when I came back from the tsunami, I kind of, after about a year or so, I fell back into the world of work. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I liked cars. So I kind of fell into the motor trade. And I was supposed to be there for 6 months and ended up being there for about 12 years, which was exciting. But I started my own business because I had this big urge of like, I have to set a good example for my kids because I was so miserable at Mercedes. And I've had anxiety, I've had depression, I've had suicidal ideation, I've had all of these things. So I was really aware of like the impact the negativity of work was having on me. So I started my own business, and I was in this position where I left my pretty stable job as a husband with a wife and two young boys, which was exactly the situation my dad was in. He was a husband with a wife with two young boys, and he had his own business. He didn't do very well, unfortunately. I think that was part of the struggles of his demise, was that, and then he medicated with alcohol, and it kind of all got worse. But yeah, as I left my work, I was thinking, this is like a carbon copy
Mhm.
of exactly what happened. And everybody's thinking, oh, are you excited for your new business? I was thinking, no, I just don't want this to be the first step to my inevitable suicide when it all goes wrong. Like, without sounding too flippant about it, so I don't want to repeat that. So that really played on me for the longest time. And I've moved past it now. And now my youngest daughter's here. We've got three of them. There's less of a comparable. But to answer your question, it's about that. It's like anybody that's had a terrible kind of childhood. It's trying to make good and trying to give my kids what I didn't have. So I do all sorts of stuff for my kids, and I make sure I'm there for them emotionally, and we talk a lot, and I'm at home a lot, not just because of the pandemic and everything. I really want to spend a lot of time with them growing up, all the things that I never had, basically. So that's really what it's done for me. And that's more of his suicide and everything that happened with him than the tsunami. The tsunami is just like this weird detour on the way, because the suicide of a parent on its own is just a life-defining, terrible event, let alone that.
Interestingly, I think the other guys would see this as well. We see so many people who've had that lifestyle, that childhood, who then go and repeat the behaviors of their father or their mother or whoever. The self-awareness you've just shown to go, I don't want to repeat it. That's self-awareness. And where do you think that come from?
Hundreds of hours of counseling and an intrinsic notion of the buck stops with me. So it's my responsibility to stop all this silliness going forward.
But that intrinsic bit, because I've seen people who've been through hundreds of hours of counselling because they're looking for someone to blame, to hang. They still take no responsibility for their future because it's I can't change my future because this is what my past is. You grab your future and taking control of it.
I suppose it's within me, just the notion of like, I've got one life, I got to live it as best I can. And it is up to me. Like, I didn't cause a tsunami to happen. I didn't cause it to have my dad, but I can choose my response to it. So it's like responsible is able to choose your response, right? So I've always been kind of aware of that. And also now I'm a dad. Like, I couldn't imagine, even in my darkest of darkest moments, I couldn't imagine doing what he did. And just out of sheer bloody mindedness, I wouldn't, because I just would refuse to repeat history. But yeah, I don't know. I just have this intrinsic thing where the buck stops with me. Like, if I can stop this generational thing. And I found out through the years that actually his father also killed himself.
That's what I'm saying.
Which was exciting. So yeah, so it runs through.
So you just said a quote, which I want you to say again. What did you say?
Well, responsible is being able to choose your response. So whatever happens to you, you can choose how you respond to it. And however unfair it might feel, and you could argue, I've had some pretty unfair things happen to me,
Yeah.
but you can still choose how you respond to that. And if I hadn't have stopped drinking, and if I'd have blamed my dad, blamed the tsunami and blah, 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 and I'm unlucky to be there rather than lucky to have survived, I probably wouldn't be talking with you today, to be honest. You're able to choose your response. So responsible, you're able to choose your response. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it.
Fantastic.
That just relates to what we teach, basically, which is making a really prominent point in solution focused side of it. And I think the people that are listening to the podcast and listening to your the tsunami is probably going to be the thing that stands out as a major part of the story. But for those people who are there, who aren't going to face a tsunami in their life at that same level or that same scale or the things that have happened, but maybe dealing with those simpler challenges, albeit they're enough of a challenge to that individual. I think that statement about being responsible is about being able to choose how you to respond to those situations is probably the key takeaway here. Because that does mean the difference between whether you feel anxiety and panic or whether you look at it and take a practical mind step and take steps to solve it and move forward with your life. In terms of, you talked about hundreds of hours of counseling that you've gone through and CBT. Was there a point where you decided what to go down the route of, or did you just kind of fall into that? Was it just, I need to talk to someone, and it ended up being counseling? Or did you sound like you're the sort of person that would also analyze every option available? Was it a case of looking at all the different therapies out there and concluding that counseling was the one for you and CBT, or was it just flowed along?
I fell into it. I fell into counseling because I've been offered it before. My mum tried to get it for me because she was aware of obviously like this huge impact. But even before he'd killed himself, witnessing the suicide attempts, and he threatened us with violence. He threatened to kill us and burn us alive and all sorts of terrible things. So she was aware that we needed to talk. Not that I was ready for it. So I kind of fell into that. But then I'd done it so much to death that as much as I love my counselor and it really helped me at the end, I was like, we're just not getting anywhere anymore. Like, is there anything else? And she said, oh yeah, well, there's CBT. I was like, sorry, what's that? And then that was when I understood about CBT. And that was really cool because with the CBT thing, it's a lot more practical. So it's not the soft, touchy feeling. So how do you feel, etc., which totally has its place. But at that point, I'm just like, to my point, fix me. And I know that's a flippant thing to say, it's not possible, but that was my approach. Like, fix me, like there must be a way. So when I started working with my CBT therapist, like, tell me the books you are reading and I will read all of them. Like, tell me where you're at and I'll match up to where you're at, and that'll make it a lot quicker, won't it? Because if I can speak your language and say, I've got a bit of black and white thinking going on here and blah blah blah, you're not gonna have to explain these concepts to me. We're gonna speed up the process. So I fell into it, and then I really was able to take control of it after that.
So just give everybody who's listening a quick sort of 30-second snapshot of what CBT actually entails.
Well, my understanding of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, is understanding thought patterns. So why you think the way you think, and then taking control of it. So if something bad happens to me now, and then I immediately feel scared or like I need to have a drink or take some drugs or punch somebody or whatever, I can then kind of remove myself. So, okay, I feel like I want to do that as a response to that because I feel this way. And that's essentially where I can then interject and say, well, that's not a good idea, is it? I should probably take the better route there. And 9 times out of 10, I'm able to do that. There's sometimes when you can't, but 9 times out of 10. But really, it's like that stepping back. It's like observing the situation as a third person, really, and looking for the most pragmatic solution. That's my understanding of it. And then obviously they give labels to everything, black and white thinking, etc.
Yeah, that was it. Because you would mention black and white thinking, and people are going to be like, "What on earth is this?"
What's the other one? Is rumination. There's a few key phrases, isn't there, for kind of things in CBT? But that was key for me. So it's like, let me understand, because I can help myself and I can help you, and we can kind of accelerate this process, which probably goes against what they're trying to do, because like we really need to give these things time and space to breathe. But it helped me because I felt more in control. And I guess with the tsunami and the suicide and everything, I felt a distinct lack of control. So that's probably why I'm looking for it in all areas of my life.
There's been some really lovely things that you've mentioned that I kind of want to highlight, if you don't mind. We talk about, when we're talking to clients, we talk about insurmountable danger causes us anxiety, and we talk about also slow, gradual danger that causes us to have this anxiety. And it seems like you went through both of those. You had your father, and that caused that slow, constant anxiety. And then obviously the tsunami, which was the insurmountable danger incident, right? Which is just amazing. I've never met someone who's gone through both like that. And then you've really rationalized it so well, because you're right, you do choose your response to how those things that happened. And your version and Mark's version of that are two very different responses to the very same incident, which is something that we talk about. And you talked, I can't remember exactly what you said, but you said you took this very positive step out of it, and being lucky, maybe that was the thing. Maybe just finding that word in that dictionary has helped you have that positive outlook on it, which I thought was fantastic.
I do consider myself a lucky person despite everything that's happened.
It-
Objectively, I'm not a lucky person, but I am because I survived it. And I've always stuck with that.
Go on,
So
Gary.
it's just perspective and different people, because I've got a friend who had a serious car accident and he lost his arm, and he considered himself lucky
Because he
because he's
survived.
left-handed. He lost his right hand.
Yeah.
And okay.
And a
But it
bit of
was,
humor helps as well, doesn't it? I think.
yeah, but he was lucky because he lost one arm and it wasn't the arm he used a lot.
Yeah.
And it's
Every
that
counts.
ability to go, what's a solution?
Mm,
And I think we can go, we're lucky, but then what next? And I think what Peter, Ben, and I do is we build on, okay, this is where you are today. Where do you go from here? Where CBT helps you manage processes, but it doesn't talk about how the future pacing and goal setting and everything else is where we work. And that's what, and we work a lot on neuroscience. So we give a more detailed understanding of everybody's reactions and why they're reacting to that. It changes that concept a little bit more. So you get much better, clearer picture of where you want to go. So neuroplasticity happens and it overwrites a lot of those pathways which don't help you. So there's a difference in that. Having that mindset of I'm lucky or I can still do something, my cup's half full, really drives it forward, which only the individual can have. So that's, or quite often they find it through those challenging times. They make that decision in that moment, and we see a lot of change like that.
You could say you're lucky. You could also say you're probably you're rich, you're wealthy but not in the monetary sense. You're wealthy in a sense that a lot of people in life will never get to or won't experience the self-awareness that's been brought about by your experience,
yeah.
appreciation and pragmatism to be able to make decisions in life with perspective. If you look at people in society, and there are people today who couldn't cope with something as simple as a bill coming to the mail because they can't work out how to get past the fact that they can't afford to pay for it or something similar. And to that extreme end of all the people that can see in their life, the only way they can see their happiness being is by being a millionaire. And that's then they chase a dream that will never arrive, or when it does arrive, they wonder why they're sat there depressed and haven't fulfilled their life with some desire or what they thought was going to be there. So I'd say you're a very wealthy person in that sense, in what you can take away from it and what you've been able to change in terms of your perspective. So if you were going to give someone who's listening to this any sort of guidance about their life or taking something forward, I can see your brain's ticking already.
Yeah. So, well, got
Where am I
a
going to go?
thousand things. What can I
Yeah,
say?
yeah. If you could pin this back to something, and you might not be able to, but if you can, what would be a starting point for you, or
I,
to move forward to be able to
I,
gain?
I think the main thing for me is the being able to choose your response thing. And because in that it's kind of implied that the emotion is removed. So to use your bill analogy, oh, that's a big bill we've received. And we don't have enough money to pay that bill. Well, what are our actual options here? Rather than going, immediately going into panic mode, because I think that's what being able to choose your response for me kind of implies. It's taking the emotion out and taking the urgency out, because depending, like to use a bill analogy, you probably got a good 2 3 weeks you could do nothing with it. It wouldn't really matter to anybody. But when we get into those situations, we tend to panic and pressure ourselves unnecessarily and make stupid decisions, when actually you could have probably slept on it for a couple of days and then casually come to it. And that's something I have to learn, because I'm very, very fast paced. I think quickly, I talk quickly, and I want to do everything yesterday. I haven't got time to be impatient. But actually, just, yeah, trusting the process and letting time take care of itself is a big part. But choosing your response. So here is the bill. Okay, we don't have the money. Well, what can we actually do? We can borrow the money. We can speak to the people and tell them we can't pay and blah, blah, blah. There's always options. There's always something. But for a lot of us, myself included, even now, depending on what the button is, and money's a button for a lot of people, you go straight to that kind of that sharp emotional response. And that's when silly things happen. That's when you might go to your coping mechanism of choice. And depending on what that is, things are going to go well or not. So I think that's it. It's choosing a response and trying to take the emotion out of things and just slow down.
Really key points there. Remove the emotion and you've got
Thank you. There's a book that I think that resonates with me, that if you haven't read it, then I think you should, because you'll probably identify a lot in it. It's called The Luck Factor by...
Oh, I've not read that one.
It's brilliant. It's a really great book. I mean, some of the stuff that you're
Awesome.
saying it's stuff that
Yeah.
he's kind of brought up on and talked about in his studies.
I just want to quantify one point on luck. I consider myself lucky, but I don't rely on luck as in, I'm sat at home manifesting things and taking no action.
Right.
So I consider myself lucky, but I put in the work and I put myself in lucky positions. So I'm not waiting for things to happen. I'm making it happen. But I'm looking for the lucky things.
That's exactly what he says, and this is why I think you will really like that book.
Yeah, thank you. I'll get that.
No
Thank you.
All I hear is you don't try and control the things you can't control. And too many people try and push back the waves. And look, that's a bit of a weird thing to say today, isn't it?
That's all right.
Just heard that.
I'm cool with it. It's fine.
They try to change the outcome they have no control over.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for, and funny enough, there's a lot of like water-based analogies for this stuff, but there's a lot to be said for going with the flow in certain situations and just trusting the process and seeing what happens and letting go to a degree. Yeah, absolutely. The wonders of life.
Up then. So thank you very much, James. It's been absolutely lovely
Pleasure.
chatting with you and learning about your story. Before we go, would you like to tell people how they can get hold of you and what you do now? What's your day job? How do you help people now? And what they can do to reach out to get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So I'm there, James Newell. And what I actually do now, my company is called Clear Sales Message, and I help businesses to articulate their value proposition. So through the process of the tsunami and everything else, I went down this track of I want to do work that I love and that I'm good at. And through BNI, funnily enough, and networking, I realized I had a great skill for simplifying complex offerings for businesses, and it's quite a valuable thing for them. And that's now what I do. And I set a good example for my kids in doing so. So Clear Sales Message is the name of my business, but LinkedIn is the best place to find me.
Thank you very much, James.
You're welcome.
Gents, do you want to say goodbye and a last final thought from yourself, Gary?
Yeah, so listen, that was the most fascinating story. Had me hooked all the way through. You describe it really well and really articulately. And I'm just very inspired by your journey since then. Not that bit, that wasn't inspiring, but actually what you chose to do since then. So absolutely love to get you back on the podcast, actually, because I think you've got a lot to offer from men's mental health and men in general. So just been a pleasure listening to you and being part of sharing that story to a wider audience. Thank you.
And Ben.
Yeah, no, likewise, James. I think thank you very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to listen to you and hear your story. You definitely can articulate it well, because you brought alive all those action movies that we sit and watch. Like you talked about Impossible, you've been there and actually been through that scenario. I think what is impressive is how you've come around and you've made that choice and ability now to choose your perspective, remove your emotion, and choose how you react and respond to situations that you face in life, which has made you, as I said, wealthy in one respect. And I think Gary's right. I was going to say it, but I think we've only really scratched the surface today.
Oh yeah, 100%.
From one event in your life, we've had insight to two, your dad's suicide, but I think there's a lot more that could come out of it. So I think it would be great if you came back on the podcast.
Yeah, I'd love to.
It'd be really, really interesting to see where we can take it and what can come out. But thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much, James. Really enjoyed your story. Didn't realize just how good it was, but yeah, thank you. It's life-changing stuff. And if you're one of the people that are listening to this podcast and you're worried about your bills, maybe just some of the stuff that James has said there will help you to understand that it's not as bad as it seems. So thank you very much.